Hello and welcome. Today we consider the all-critical question, what is a republic? Many times people use the word republic and they don't really know what they're describing. They don't know what they mean by the word republic, what it means in politics, what it means for the structure of politics, what it means, and if we're studying either Roman history or American history, then we need to know what a republic is, because both America is still a republic, has been since its founding. And for Roman history, Romans had a republic lasting for about 500 to 600 years, I think, somewhere in there. But the thesis, no further delay, the thesis is that a republic is a structured representational democracy. It combines the three types of rule, monarchy, oligopoly, democracy, into a system of decision-making and vested sovereignty. The strength of a republic comes with the enfranchisement, the citizenship, and opportunity through competition and career. When more citizens have access points to forms of rule, they are invested with the system of government, including they invest the state with their property, commerce, labors, and service to the state. They invest the state with all of these: property, commerce, labors, works, institutions, and service to the state. When you allow people to have a share and have a vote, have a voice in the way decisions are made, then they invest their whole property, their whole livelihood in the conducting of the state service to the state. That is why the American Republic has been so successful in its history. That is why Rome was so successful as a republic for many hundreds of years. And if it is lost to a dictatorship, perhaps prosperity will continue for a time, but really the republic is the most stable form of government because it combines all three forms of government and they rule together. And we'll get into what this means in point one. But first, an aside is that Gibbons, a historian named Gibbons, I don't know his first name, sorry. Gibbons wrote the history and decline of the history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. He released it between 1776 and 1788. So it was available at the same time during the drafting of the U.S. Constitution. The founding fathers must have read it, must have understood the Roman history. I know that James Madison, when he was designing the Constitution, he referred both to the philosophy of Aristotle and systematizing forms of government. James Madison referred to Aristotle and the systematizing of forms of government, and he also referred to the Roman Republic as a model for what the American Republic would be. So point one, there are three modes of rule. As we all know: monarchy, ruled by one person at the head of the state; democracy, demos, actually named because it's named after the mob, as if it's a rule by the mob. So democracy is literally called mob rule in Greek. And then there's oligopoly, which is ruled by a select few, of group of people, like aristocracy. So the three modes of rule are monarchy, demos, democracy, and oligopoly. And so with a republic, it's structured to combine all three elements into one same state apparatus, government apparatus. And so it's tied to the monarchy is the executive. In America, that's the president. In Rome, in the Roman Republic, it was two consuls that were elected every 12 months. Two consuls were in Rome. That was the executive, was two consuls. And then the lower chamber, the Citizen Assembly. In America, it's the House of Representatives that are elected every 2 years, 2-year terms. And in Rome, it was a citizen assembly where it was all the citizens that can make it to Rome to this assembly voted in a referendum, in a show of hands. They either upvoted or downvoted certain proposals. They couldn't propose anything else. They could just up or downvote proposals. But that was the citizen assembly, the lower chamber in Rome. And then finally, in America, there's a 100-man Senate. In Rome, it was a 300-man Senate. In America, it's 2 senators from each state. In Rome, it was 300 men chosen by the amount of how much property they had. They had to have a lot of property, and it was chosen by the censors, not the consuls, but the censors. Every 5 years, the census, they would have a census determining how much property you owned, and 300 men would be selected for service in the Senate. So that's how Rome was run as a republic for, I think, 500 to 600 years, with small changes. The changes they experienced were changes to the executive. So they would have, beyond just the 2 consuls performing government, they would have praetors, who would be below the consuls, who would be magistrates, that they'd be sent to different provinces. And then they had junior magistrates, I forget what they're called, but they had the praetors below the consuls, and then the junior magistrates, and they would be sent out to lead armies, to govern provinces, and to carry out the will of the republic. So that's point one. The 3 modes of government. Point 2, this gets to the crux of the matter. as I should call the talk, what not just what is a republic, but what is the strength of a republic. The strength of a republic comes with vesting as many people in the state as possible, at least property holding male citizens. And just to give you a sense of this, in ancient Greece, they compared, in the book I'm reading, they compared and contrasted the differences between citizenship in ancient Greece, the city-states of ancient Greece, and the Roman Republic. Athens at its height, Athens was about 320,000 people at its height, I think, was the population of Athens. But Athens at its height had about 60,000 citizens that were property holding adult males. 60,000 citizens. Whereas Romans, when they extended over the whole Italian peninsula, and what the Romans did was they incorporated more peoples into Italian citizenship, into Latin citizenship, into Roman citizenship. If you were a Latin people in the Italian peninsula and you could travel to Rome, you would be considered a citizen that could vote in the lower chamber. You were given citizenships and rights of citizenships. And this was a battle they fought over initially, but basically, Italians had citizenship, and then they started accepting Romans. But as they incorporated more people into the empire, they started giving out citizenship to newly conquered people and incorporating them back into. I think this was later on, though, in the Roman Republic. But for initially, the Latin peoples were the community of Latin peoples, Latin allies of the Romans. Remember, Rome is a city-state, and then it extended over the Italian peninsula by allying with its neighbors in common defense and often warring with the neighbors, then warring with ancient Greece. But Athens had about 60,000 citizens at its height, and it could only field about, at maximum, 10,000 soldiers in the army. So 60,000 citizens, only 10,000 could fight. And but Rome at the same time in the 2nd century BC, this was the 2nd century BC, had about 200,000 men that could act as hoplites, as armored infantry, and they had 70,000 cavalry. Because you would equip yourself in the military. If you were rich, really rich, you could afford a horse and cavalry equipment. But at its height, Athens had 60,000 citizens, only 10,000 military men, whereas Rome had 200,000 men available, explicitly registered to levy. Remember, the word legion comes from the Roman word for levy. So the legion is a levy of citizen soldiers, and Rome at its height could muster in 200,000 men. I think they probably larger at its height, but in the 2nd century BC, as a republic, it could muster in 200,000 infantrymen, armored infantrymen. The strength of a republic comes with vesting as many people. So if you can vest every property holding male in the governance of your state, either by giving them, as we'll get into below, a career and competition, and part and parcel to the decision-making process. You make them a part of the decision-making process. With this is how you maximize control of the state. Because if you think about it, a state is only as powerful by as many people who serve it, who add their property, their commerce, their labors, their works, their institutes, and service to the state, direct military service to the state. So like I said with Athens can only have 10,000 soldiers, whereas Rome can have 200,000, and then 70,000 cavalry. So what's a more powerful state? And the reason why it could field so many soldiers is because it included them in property ownership and citizenship, and they had rights as citizens of Rome, even going back to the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul was a citizen of Rome, so they famously couldn't just execute him. They had to give him a so-called fair trial in ancient Rome when the Apostle Paul was arrested. And so the idea of citizenship is so important. With citizenship comes voting rights, and with citizenship comes property ownership, property rights, and a stake in how the republic is run. That's where the strength of a republic comes from. Now, I wouldn't say that the strength comes from importing hundreds of thousands or millions of immigrants from another country just for the sake of having warm bodies, because as we know, sometimes importing people they don't become property holders. They don't become active, capable, high-capacity citizens that can cultivate property or can add a lot to the republic. Sometimes they can't add a lot to the republic. So if Rome was starting to incorporate every African tribe or every Spanish tribe or every Gallian tribe, they wouldn't be able to incorporate all of them because there's no service that person can do if they don't speak the language, if they are so foreign to the culture. There's nothing they can do for the service of the state that would be valuable or worthwhile or would have a diminishing return to it, right? So just because I'm saying that the strength of the republic comes from citizenship and increasing the stake of the citizenship and increasing enfranchisement, this is mainly to speak of property holding adult males that can do military service. Often, if they can do military service, that speaks to that's the highest mode of service to the state. So, if they're property holding males that can do military service, that's an extension of enfranchisement. Then makes the republic stronger. Whereas just extending to everybody come who may not be the case, as we've seen in the United States today, where we're importing divisions of fighting age males, but they're from Pakistan, they're from the Middle East, so they may not contribute to the benefit of the American experiment, the American Republic, right? Point 3, opportunity through competition career. So as I'm getting here from this book, you find that the people, the senators and the magistrates, and there had to be a minimum of 10 years of military service if you wanted to be a senator, or 10 years service if you wanted to be a magistrate. Even a junior magistrate had to have 10 years of military service under his belt in the Roman Republic. So it's not only a filter that gets the most dedicated men and most capable and men that are willing to put their lives on the line for the sake of the Republic, but it makes it a competition, right? If property holding citizen males, adult males, compete and have a career trajectory that they can go on where they want to be consul, or they want to be a senator, or they want to be a magistrate, a praetor, a senior magistrate, or a junior magistrate, running a province as a governor, or running a legion, or commanding a legion in battle, and this was greatly tied with warfare. Their competition and career is greatly tied with warfare. So they had these things called triumphs, and they would only build they would only build monuments to triumphs if at least 5,000 there was 5,000 dead in the enemy ranks. So if they killed 5,000 enemies, they'd build a monument to triumph, or they'd celebrate it as a triumph. And whoever was commanding the legion that committed that amount of casualties against the enemy would get celebrated as a triumph. So I think they said at its final toll and at the height of the Republic, there was like something like 420,000 triumphs. So it's like tens of millions of dead, right? Or there's probably tens of millions of people died under a Roman sword. Julius Caesar is said to have killed at least 1 million Gauls in his conquest of France and the Gallic tribes. But all through all this, military warfare was part of their society. It grew the Republic, but they didn't just conquer and slaughter. They did do a lot of that too. But they incorporated the people and gave them citizenship, gave them access to the Republic, and acted as a protector for them. And they didn't start levying taxes until later on under the empire, under the emperor. I think they started levying taxes. But up to that point, opportunity through competition career made the Republic stronger. And the allied countries of Rome, this turned out to be a Roman history. The allied provinces of Rome that were protectorates would just have to provide soldiers to the military when they were called upon. They didn't even have to pay taxes. They got to make their own laws, rule their own provinces, and then they just levy soldiers when Rome asked them. But the whole point is that opportunity through competition career in a republic, this is all critical, right? And point 4, finally, vesting property, commercial, labor, works, institutes, and services of the state, all are invested in the state. So if all are invested in services of the state, with their property, their commerce, or labors, or works, whether they're selling slaves, moving goods, transporting goods, acting as pirates for the state, or acting as soldiers for the state. Vesting and property. They talked about how men in Rome and citizens of Rome would do overseas conquering, take slaves, take booty, take plunder, and then they use that plunder to buy property in Italy proper. In Italy. They'd buy property because that's the prime real estate, the safest real estate, the prime real estate in the Roman times. When you have people that are competent, capable, an aristocracy, I've often said this about Britain too, that Britain did so well because Parliament articulated and vested the aristocracy of Britain into the service of the British state and the British crown, whereas France had a French Revolution because they couldn't properly resolve the dispute between the monarch and Louis XVI and the National Assembly and the estates, the aristocracy, and the priests. France couldn't articulate that to save the monarchy, but Britain had a parliament out of long-standing history and civil war that meant that the aristocracy was invested in, the landed aristocracy in Britain was invested in the service of the state and promulgating laws, producing budgets, producing appropriations bills, all these things. In Rome, it's still different. The republic is the service of the state is such that each citizen is invested their property, their commerce, their labors, their works, their institutes, and the service of the state, including direct military service. All these men that had property could be called upon by the state, and they wouldn't be forced to serve more than 16 campaigns or 16 years. Or 16 campaigns or 16 years in service of the military. But with the competition, the career, with the decision-making bodies at work in the republic, you then invest them with property, and their labors and their works go towards building up a greater Rome, a more glorious Rome. Private competition, private citizenship competition, and rights and enfranchisement and citizenship leads to a stronger republic. So with that, I'll leave you my piece to give you. This is just a tour de force on republic, the two strongest republics being Rome and America. I didn't get into the U.S. history enough. I will in the future, but this is just a primer on what is a republic and what is the strength of a republic. So with that, I'll leave you my piece to give you in Jesus' name. God bless. Amen. Bye-bye.